Happy Monday. I'm just going to jump right into it because this has been on my heart all week. And it's funny because this actually isn't what I studied and planned to talk about. So it's crazy how that happens. But what I want you to know is while you are going through your personal growth journey, I want you to be careful who you let pour into you. There are so many messages out there, including mine. But, I hope that you could see, the authenticity and the purpose behind mine. But the reality is that most messages that are out there do not serve you. And you have to use your intuition to figure out which ones those are. Personal growth, just the decision to become the best version of yourself. That's my definition for personal growth. But personal growth is, such an intimate and vulnerable journey. When you really become intentional about it, and searching for information to help you go through it, because it can be hard work. It can be easy to be bamboozled out of your time, your money, your resources, your mind. People will bamboozle you straight out of your mind. So it's important that you take careful consideration into what you read or watch or listen to or who you talk to. You have to be careful about the message that is being poured into you, whether you notice it or not. And you have to be careful about the messages that you internalize as well. And I believe that there is one simple means of figuring out if someone is feeding you something that can nourish you through that journey, or if they're feeding you some bullshit. And that's to trust your intuition. That's the simple means. Now, I know some people are saying oh, I'm not in tune with my intuition. I feel like we all are in tune with our intuition. The issue comes when you refuse to listen to your intuition. That's the difference. But I want to give you an example of when I did listen to my intuition. I didn't at first, but then I did. But I didn't, and I was being fed some bullshit. Me and my sister were down at college, and we were looking for a new, college church home. We're church girls, grew up in a church. And a friend invited us to come to, I guess it wasn't their church home, but to come to their church. And when we got there, the first time that we went, and this is the time that I didn't listen to my intuition. The first time we went, I don't remember what the sermon was about, but when it got to the tithes and offerings time, at the end of it, the pastor, the person who was over it, asked everyone who didn't give a tithe or offering to raise their hand. He brought those people up to the front of the church, had the trustees or whoever had the baskets of money to give each one of them $1. And then, said some BS about, giving. And they had those people put the $1 back into the basket. It did not make sense to me. It was confusing. And I know the guy didn't know confusion. And the message didn't seem right, but we stayed and went back a second time. And this second time they had there was another speaker. I don't know if it was the pastor of the church or if it was another minister or if it was a guest pastor, but they had this woman speaking, and she was giving a sermon, and she ended up saying something along the lines of, sometimes the devil will try to use you, and, sometimes you just got to let him. What? And then she fixed herself, and she said, oh, well, that's not what I meant. I'm talking crazy. And I don't know if you all have ever seen the Scanlan meme where he goes, yeah, that's what I did in church. Like, I know people mess up when they speak, but I don't think I've ever heard anybody in church, and I'm a church girl, ever heard anybody in church tell you to let the devil use you. Like, he's the number one person who is not supposed to use you. I mean, like, everybody else be using you, but he's the number one person everybody knows is who's not supposed to be using you. Needless to say, I grabbed my sister and ran up out of that church. Listened to my intuition. The message was BS, and I did not want to be fed any more of it. And you have to know when you are being fed some BS because of the ripple effects that can happen in your life. It could be the smallest message. Think of all the IG quotes and the memes, or you know, somebody's status, or one line from some, you know, author from way back in the day that can have an effect on your life, you know, even if it's just for a moment. So you have to be careful about what you allow into your spirit, into your mind, which leads me to an example of where I did feel like I was being fed something that was nourishing. I was invited a couple of days ago by a friend who just believed in my vision and what I'm trying to do. And she invited me, she thought of me, invited me to this event that was titled Find Your Fears Tour with Nicole Jones, who is a women's entrepreneurship business coach. And I had never heard of this woman before. I, you know, didn't follow her on Instagram or on Facebook. I had never seen any of her messages. But when she began to speak, and I realized how much I was paying attention to her. And whenever I leave events or, you know, gatherings like that, I always like post like I felt full. And throughout the entire event, it was a 4-hour event. Throughout the entire event, I felt like I was being fed something that was nourishing me. And my intuition was right in line with it. So I stayed, I took notes. I knew that I was being fed something that was going to have a great ripple effect on me. And so, you know, at the end of it, you know, I thanked her and I told her, I said, you know, I've never heard of you before, but I'm actually looking forward to working with you in the future, because I felt like that was exactly like what I needed in that moment. And it was good. And so I continued to let her pour into me. But needless to say, you know, every one of us should make sure that we are nourished. We need to be careful about what we allow to be poured into us. I normally start off with a question, but I'll be ending with a question and with a quote. And so my question to you, just for your journaling purposes, is what are you allowing to be fed or poured into you? And then I'll leave you with this quote from Mother. And I know you've probably, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me post this book, What I Know for Sure, by Oprah. And in it, under her power section, the quote that I want to leave you with is, it says, to own the abundant life that's waiting for you, you've got to be willing to do the real work. Not your job, not your career profile, but heeding your spirit, which is whispering its greatest desires for you. You've got to get silent sometimes to hear it, and check in regularly. You must feed your mind with thoughts and ideas that open you to new possibilities. I'll post that and the question under in the YouTube description. And again, I want to thank you for tuning in to Pep Talks. I'll see you next Monday.